Good afternoon. Welcome back. Last week we stopped at the growth of the English and the Romans' maritime dominance on the Mediterranean Sea. Today we shall continue with the difference between admiralty and maritime law. Difference between admiralty and maritime law. Admiralty law and maritime law are often used interchangeably, but there are subtle distinctions between the two. These terms are closely related and often overlap, as they both pertain to legal matters involving the sea, ships, and navigation. Here is a breakdown of key differences. 1. I have the scope. Admiralty law, historically, it primarily deals with issues related to the jurisdiction of admiralty courts, which were special courts handling maritime cases. Admiralty law is more focused on procedural and jurisdictional aspects, especially in the context of resolving maritime disputes, while for the maritime law, it has a broader scope and encompasses a wider range of legal issues related to navigation, shipping, maritime insurance, contracts, and other matters pertaining to the sea. The maritime law includes both substantive and procedural aspects, covering a variety of legal principles that apply to maritime activities. This is self-explanatory. The admiralty law focus on procedural and jurisdictional aspects. Focus on jurisdictional aspects and procedural aspects. While maritime maritime law tends to be more broader in view as to it encompasses a wide range of legal issues related to navigation. As to shipping, navigation, marine insurance contracts, marine insurance, contracts, and other matters pertaining to the sea. I'm trying to point out the major differences for easy accessibility and understanding. Two, under historical concept, the Admiralty Law as defined historically refers to the authority and jurisdiction of admirals who were naval officers responsible for enforcing maritime laws, which originally developed in the context of maritime disputes and the need for specialized legal systems to handle these matters. On the other hand, maritime law has a broader historical context relating to activities and matters concerning the sea. The maritime law has evolved to cover a wide array of legal issues beyond the specific jurisdictional and procedural concerns addressed by maritime law. Three, we have court jurisdiction. Historically, Admiralty law was associated with the jurisdiction of Admiralty courts, which had authority over maritime cases. Admiralty courts were established to handle disputes arising from maritime activities. Was established to handle disputes arising from maritime activities. While maritime law is not limited to the jurisdiction of specific Admiralty courts. Maritime law cases may be heard in various courts, and the principles of maritime law are integrated into the legal systems of many countries. It is, maritime law is all-encompassing of courts of Admiralty court concerns. Modern usage. Admiralty law, as the name suggests, is often used more in a historical or procedural context, referring to the jurisdiction and procedures of Admiralty courts. In modern legal practice, the term Admiralty law may be less commonly used than maritime law. But maritime law this term is widely used today to describe the body of law governing maritime activities. It encompasses a wide range of legal issues, including contracts, torts, beliefs, environmental regulations, and more that are relevant to activities on the sea. What Admiralty law here is talking about is often used more in a historical or procedural context, like court jurisdictions, court procedures. In modern legal practice, the term Admiralty law may be less commonly used than maritime law, while on the other hand, maritime law is widely used today to describe the body of governing maritime activities. It is all-encompassing, especially the issue of legal matters, legal issues, including contracts, environmental regulations, the body of ships, more that are relevant to the activities on the sea. In summary, while Admiralty law and maritime law are related and often used interchangeably, Admiralty law historically focused more on jurisdictional and procedural aspects, while Admiralty law historically focused more on jurisdictional and procedural aspects, while maritime law has a broader scope covering substantive legal issues related to the sea and maritime activities. The distinction between the two terms has become less pronounced in modern legal practice. It talks about Admiralty law, which are being used interchangeably, and its historical focus, which is more on jurisdictional and procedural aspects, while maritime law has a broader scope covering substantive legal issues related to the sea and maritime activities. The distinction between both terms, between the two terms, has become less pronounced in modern legal practice. This, of course, is self-explanatory. Maritime jurisdiction. Maritime jurisdiction to the authority and legal control that a coastal state exercises over maritime zones adjacent to its territory. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, is a comprehensive international treaty that establishes the framework for maritime jurisdiction. Here are the key components of maritime jurisdiction. You have the territorial sea. We have the contiguous zone. We have the exclusive economic zone, the continental shelf. We also have high seas, archipelagic waters, internal waters, just to mention a few. Now let's talk about them one after the other. The territorial sea. The territorial sea is the belt of water adjacent to a coastal state's baseline, usually the low water line along the coast, and extends outward for 12 nautical miles. Here, the coastal states have full sovereignty over their territorial sea, including the right to regulate passage, control fishing, and enforce customs and immigration laws. We are talking about maritime jurisdiction, the areas, the ambience, the territorial territory. The domain where this seas, the maritime, is actually domiciled. Now the coastal states have full sovereignty, power, territory over their territorial sea, including the right to regulate passage. They have dominance, they have rights. They regulate passage, those that can pass and those that cannot pass through. They control fishing activities. And of course, enforce customs and immigration laws. For those that may wish to pass through that route, they have the final say. Next is contiguous zone. This is the area beyond the territorial sea, extending up to 24 nautical miles from the baseline. In the contiguous zone, coastal states have limited jurisdiction to enforce customs, immigration, and environmental laws. They have the limited jurisdiction, limited power, limited territory, limited ambience, area. There are limitations to their jurisdiction, to their territory, in the enforcement of customs, the immigration, as well as environmental laws. We have the exclusive economic zone, EEZ. This talks about a zone extending up to 200 nautical miles from the baseline. Within the EEZ, coastal states have sovereign rights over the exploitation and exploration of natural resources, including fish and minerals. Other states enjoy freedom of navigation and overflight in the EEZ. What this means is that within the exclusive economic zone, termed as the EEZ, coastal states have sovereign rights, power, control over the exploration and exploitation of natural resources, which may include fish and minerals. Other states enjoy freedom of navigation and overflight in the EEZ. Continental shelf. The continental shelf is submerged extension of a coastal state's land territory, typically extending up to 200 nautical miles or beyond if certain geological conditions are met. Coastal states have sovereign rights over the resources of the continental shelf, including oil, gas, and minerals. This implies that the continental shelf, by extension to its coastal states' land territory, have sovereign rights within the coastal states over the resources. They have dominance over the resources of the continental shelf, not limited to the oil, gas, and minerals within its coastal states. The high seas. Beyond the EEZ, the high seas are areas of the ocean that are not subject to the jurisdiction of any particular state. States have the freedom to navigate, to fish, to conduct scientific research in the seas, which are considered the common heritage of all mankind. Again, states have the freedom to navigate under the high seas, to conduct scientific research in the high seas. We know that means. You know what that means? Conducting scientific research in the high seas. Those who dive into the water, of course with oxygen, dress in an outfit that looks like a fish, which are considered the common heritage of all mankind. The next is archipelagic waters. In this case, the waters within the baselines drawn between the outermost points of the islands are considered archipelagic waters. The waters within the baselines drawn between the outermost points of the islands are considered archipelagic waters. The archipelagic states have sovereignty, dominance. They are free from control over archipelagic waters, but must ensure the right of innocent passage for foreign ships. Next is internal waters. Internal waters are waters on the landward side of the baseline, and coastal states have full sovereignty over these areas. Vessels navigating internal waters are subject to the laws and regulations of the coastal states. The internal waters on the landward side of the baseline. This talks about the fact that they have absolute control, absolute dominance, absolute sovereignty. They are free from any threat. They are free from any territorial dominance over these areas. As such, vessels navigating the internal waters are subject to the laws and regulations of the coastal states. They are all good to go. Now, it is important to note that the UNCLOS provides the legal framework for determining maritime boundaries and resolving disputes related to maritime jurisdiction. States are expected to adhere to the principles outlined in UNCLOS to ensure the peaceful use and conservation of maritime or marine resources. The concept of maritime jurisdiction is crucial, important, pertinent in regulating activities on the seas and promoting cooperation among states with coastal interests. This concept provides a legal framework for determining maritime boundaries. It talks about the boundaries. A boundary has been set by the UNCLOS, having provided a legal framework to resolve conflict should the need arise, that which is related to maritime jurisdiction, which must be adhered to strictly to ensure peaceful coexistence and conservation of the maritime resources or marine resources. This concept is very crucial, important in the regulation or in regulating activities on the seas, promoting cooperation among states with coastal interests. The maritime jurisdiction in Nigeria. The maritime jurisdiction in Nigeria. In Nigeria, maritime jurisdiction is governed by laws and international conventions, with a significant focus on the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. Nigeria, as a coastal state, exercises its maritime jurisdictions over various zones adjacent to its coastline. Here are the key aspects of maritime jurisdiction in Nigeria. Key aspects of maritime jurisdiction in Nigeria. The first here is the territorial sea. Secondly, we have the contiguous zone. Third, we have the exclusive economic zone, the EEZ. The fourth, we have the continental shelf. We have the internal waters. We have port jurisdiction. And so on and so forth. For the purpose of this study, let's begin one after the other. We have the territorial sea. Nigeria, like other coastal states, has a territorial sea extending 12 nautical miles from its baseline. With this zone, Nigeria exercises full dominance, full sovereignty, full control, including the regulation of navigation, customs, and immigration within its ambience. There is absolute sovereignty, there is absolute dominance, there is absolute control, but not limited to the regulation of navigation, customs, and immigration within Nigeria's territorial sea. 2. Contiguous zone. Beyond the territorial sea, Nigeria has a contiguous zone extending up to 24 nautical miles. Here in this zone, the country has limited jurisdiction to enforce customs, immigration, and environmental laws. In the contiguous zone, such that it's beyond the territorial sea, Nigeria has an extension up to 24 nautical miles. Nigeria, by extension under these nautical miles, has limited control, has limited power to enforce customs, immigration, and environmental laws under this aspect. The EEZ, the exclusive economic zone. Nigeria's exclusive economic zone extends up to 200 nautical miles from its baseline. Within the EEZ, Nigeria has sovereign rights over the exploration and exploitation of natural resources, including fisheries and minerals. If we look at the contiguous zone, our nautical miles by extension is up to 24, while under the EEZ it extends up to 200 nautical miles from its baseline. Continental shelf. Nigeria exercises sovereign rights over the resources of its continental shelf, which extends beyond the EEZ. This continental shelf is important, it's crucial for the exploration of oil and gas resources. within the continent, as the case may be. Nigeria exercises dominance, its own right, its own freedom, its own dominance, its own control over the resources of its continental shelf. This cannot be shared by any other person, which, by extension, is beyond the EEZ. This is so because it is highly crucial for the exploration of oil and gas resources. Every country will do so. Internal waters. The internal waters within Nigeria's territory are subject to the country's full sovereignty. The laws and regulations of Nigeria apply to vessels navigating within its internal waters. The laws and regulations of Nigeria apply to vessels navigating within its internal waters under this concept. And for port jurisdiction, point 6, Nigeria has several major ports along its coastline, including Lagos, Port Harcourt, and Calabar. These ports are essential for trade and commerce, and Nigeria exercises jurisdiction over the activities within its ports, of course. The port jurisdiction talks about several major activities under trade and commerce, where Nigeria exercises jurisdiction within its ports, especially the Lagos, Port Harcourt, and Calabar. We have the naval presence and enforcement. The Nigerian Navy plays a vital role in enforcing maritime jurisdiction. It conducts patrols from time to time, surveillance, regularly, routine surveillance, routine patrol, routine checks, and enforcement activities to ensure compliance with national and international maritime laws. This is done, but not limited to the inclusion of combating illegal fishing, piracy, and other maritime crimes. The Nigerian Navy does this, and the Nigerian Navy is engaged in such activity or activities to assist in combating maritime crimes. They assist in the enforcement of maritime laws within and outside the country. They conduct regular checks. They conduct routine checks. They conduct patrols from time to time. There is irregular surveillance of the coastline, of the sea, of the territory. This is done in line with the compliance of both national and international maritime laws. Next is adherence to UNCLOS. Nigeria is a party to UNCLOS and as such adheres to the principles outlined in the Convention for the Determination of Maritime Boundaries, the exercise of sovereign rights and the peaceful use of the seas. Nigeria is a party to UNCLOS, of course. As such, it is incumbent on Nigeria to adhere strictly to the principles outlined by such body in the determination of maritime boundaries, the exercise of its sovereign rights, and the peaceful use of the seas, such that Nigeria will not go beyond its boundaries, so Nigeria will not go outside the conventions, the principles, the rudiments in the exercise, in the discharge of its sovereign rights and the peaceful utilization of the seas. Collaboration and regional cooperation. It is therefore pertinent for Nigeria to collaborate with neighboring coastal states and international organizations to address common maritime challenges. Regional cooperation is crucial for addressing issues such as piracy, illegal fishing, and maritime security. This is good. This is really nice. Oftentimes, whenever such need arise, it is important for every country, both the neighboring and outside, to have a good memorandum of understanding, to have such a nice collaborative efforts and cooperation in addressing issues affecting their maritime industry. Nigeria, for instance, collaborates with its neighboring coastal states and international organizations in addressing such menaces within its coastal lines, such as illegal fishing, piracy, and maritime security. In summary, maritime jurisdiction in Nigeria is based on both national laws and international conventions, with the UNCLOS serving as a foundational framework. Nigeria exercises its jurisdiction over its territorial sea, contiguous zone, exclusive economic zone, continental shelf, and internal waters, with a focus on sustainable use and conservation of marine resources. The Nigerian Navy plays a vital role in enforcing maritime laws and ensuring security in its maritime domain. This is important for the safety of the internal waters, the EEZ, the continental shelf, among others. With the UNCLOS serving as a foundational framework, it becomes very easy. It becomes okay for Nigeria. Why? Because it is based on both national laws and international conventions to enable it achieve its set targets and congruent goals, to enable it achieve its aims and objectives. With this, we have come to the end of today. When next we meet, we shall be starting from Carriage of Goods by Sea. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you for listening. Regards.